Hey, gang. So I was off at a conference for a while, and I got corona. Yeah, so I got sick on the trip. Decided to do a test. Turns out that I've got COVID, which is awesome. But thankfully, a mild case, boosted, and all of that, so I wasn't overly worried. I'm not in any of the threatened demographics. So yeah, it was thankfully a redhead, so lots of Neanderthal genes rocking through me. But anyway, this is the Sprintwatch that I do. And basically, what I do is I go through, I read the roadmap roundup, like a lot of people do. I go through the release view, and then the bulk of this one is in the progress tracker. This time, there are a ton of changes in the release view and the roadmap roundup, so that might actually be the bulk. I was thinking about doing this one as more of a medium dive, so kind of go into some of the unannounced features and just kind of talk about what my general thoughts are of what is coming in the next couple weeks, since CitizenCon is, let's see, 8 days away. Is it the 14th? I want to say it's 2 weekends away. Not far. Either way, not far away, which is kind of cool because we're going to get a lot of the answers to the questions that I'm going to be asking right now. So if that sounds interesting, let's get this. All right, so welcome back. So here we go. You might have noticed that intro is a little bit different because I'm currently doing a Cyberpunk playthrough. So if you want to check that out, check that out. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Starfield, I played it for about I'd say about 2 weeks. I wanted to give it a really honest chance, and it just didn't grab me. And 5 minutes of playing Cyberpunk, I was hooked. So, or Phantom Liberty. So yeah, it made me really remember why I love that game. And it was kind of nice while 3.20 was shitting the bed. So let's go ahead and get into this with Roadmap Roundup. And sorry if I cough or if you see like weird breaks or something where I'm chugging down liquids, but here we go. Notable changes for October 4th, 2023. This week, we're introducing 3.21 column into the roadmap, which will house features, contents that were previously listed for 3.20.x. I got some opinions on that. We've made the decision to increment the Alpha 3.20.x patch nomenclature to Alpha 3.21. The primary reason for this increment is to signify Star Citizen approaching the next major milestone in its online networking technology, which warrants a proper setup. During the 3.21 patch cycle, we will introduce a new testing channel aimed at graduating new underlying technology. This new channel allows the dev teams to get players on a version of the game that matches the current live release in both content and features, but that introduces large tech changes that must be validated, graduated, and ultimately mission proven before making their way to a live release. In short, this is the next step towards server meshing after deploying persistent entity streaming earlier this year. With the replication layer moving off of the game servers, this allows the game server to be an authority over a specific area rather than the entire game universe, which is huge. While the player experience won't change much at first, and the game server will stick with managing Stanton to start with, this is a major step toward Alpha 4.0 and beyond. For more information about the replication layer, persistent entity streaming, server meshing, and how this will affect the future of Star Citizen, please check out our panel from CitizenCon 2021. Link to that one right there. So before I dive into what's coming with 3.21, they kind of tried a couple hotfixes on 3.20, and it broke the game more. And then it was really clear that they just kind of gave up on 3.20 and they just pushed 3.21 to the PTU. And effectively, there are some people running in 3.20 in the persistent universe, the live build, but not a lot because it's highly unstable. But thankfully, this evolution to server meshing in the replication layer will kind of take care of that. So to a certain extent, this is what game development is. This specifically is the kind of tech that will be absolutely life-changing for this project. You have a 30K, you might not even realize the server crash. That's what the replication layer does, is it replicate from... I'm sure I'm going to screw this up, so techies, avert your eyes, but essentially what it does is it makes a sort of built-in copy of what's going on that server and puts it on a higher level, and it keeps feeding that. And so if that server goes down, it just takes that, dumps it on another server, moves everyone over, and you shouldn't notice. There might be like a little hitch or something like that. You might see 2 black cats go by. Matrix reference. I'm old. But anyway, so that's a huge deal. On one hand, it's really frustrating. I am going to make one quick point before we dive in here. So one of the things that was wrong, one of the things I was really looking forward to with 3.20 was breaking out my whole C with my org and going out and just kind of running a few loops the whole C. And there was a bug with 3.20 where the whole C can't undock from the station. I'm not sure if this is consistent with everyone, because I was able to undock from one station, and when I got to the other station to sell everything, I went in, I sold stuff, but then I couldn't undock from the station to go to the area where you unload everything. And I kind of made a suggestion on Spectrum, why not just have the unload area be the docking arm? I mean, that's even what they show in the video, and that kind of takes out one level of complexity. At least that way people could sell their cargo and reclaim their ship. It just seems a lot easier than having 2 different areas. And I mean, I kind of get some of the arguments against that you want more areas to unload your cargo. So you kind of come in, check in, and then you go to the cargo area. I would almost say CR wants the sort of visceral universe where you have to go to the store to sell your stuff or buy your stuff. I get that. So you probably wouldn't want an app on your Moby Glass where you say, okay, I'm coming into this station, I want to sell all my stuff. You park in a parking zone where they can unload your ship, and then they unload your ship and you fly on having never left your pilot seat. CR doesn't want that. He wants you to go onto that station and experience this world that his devs have been creating, which I get. But adding in the docking where your ship is docked and you go on the station and then you have to undock, go to another place, unload, and you've got a limited amount of time to do that, and then you've got a limited amount of time for it to actually unload, or it'll despawn your ship. It's kind of like, oh, it wasn't ideal. But anyway, where I was going with that is I got this email, like I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, start cargo hauling today. And this is why people get really pissed off at marketing. Like marketing is some demonic entity that's out there. They're doing their jobs, people. I mean, their job is to sell the game. The whole C is something that they dropped with 3.20. So yeah, they're going to try to sell it because they got to make money, because they're making a project that is very expensive to run. Does it kind of piss me off that they're starting to sell the whole C when I can't undock mine from the station? Yeah, a little bit, I'll be honest. But I don't wholly blame marketing from that. And I don't totally blame the devs for not fixing it, because bigger priorities. It's just disappointing because I wanted to fly around in my whole C and I can't. And here we are. So, release view. With this publish, we're clarifying where each of the features previously slated for 3.20.x would land in the patch cycle. Below is the full list with a pair of new cards marked as such. All 3.20.0 cards have been marked as committed. All right, cool. Alpha 3.21, new Crusader platforms, adding 3 new points of interest in Crusader's atmosphere, providing new locations for missions and loot. And I've said this before, but I really, really, really hope they add more platforms that are more than just places you go to shoot people or have them shoot at you. I want them to just have like towns, have places that you can go to trade stuff that isn't the capital city. I mean, they're going to need food, they're going to need other stuff. They can fix your ship, they can fix your weapons, which is something we'll get to in a bit. But anyway, just Crusader deserves better than one location on the entire planet where you can do stuff other than blow people away. New missions, retrieve consignment. Again, a consignment is just a shopping list. A new mission type where players are tasked with locating critical items in consignment lists, then safely extract them. New mission, steal evidence. New. A criminal mission type where players are tasked with infiltrating Security Post Korea and stealing files from Crusader security for a hefty payout. I was hoping that this one was going to be more of the mission that we saw in Citizen Gone, where they introduced the Carrack when they were showing the Carrack in game, where you kind of had to put on the scientist outfit, sort of hitman your way into the facility, kind of dodge the guards who might check your badge and realize that, hey, this guy doesn't have one, and steal the data that way. I was hoping that's what it is. Hopefully we're still getting those at the new Underground, but that's not what this one is. This one's just going to be another Security Post Korea, so another reason to draw in PvPers. Crusader A1 Spirit. Building, balancing, and implementing Crusader Industries' light bomber, the A1 Spirit, into the game. Alpha 3.21.x. Replication layer update. Gigantic. Over the course of the 3.21 patch cycle, the replication layer will be moved off of the game servers and set up as its own standalone service. In the short term, this allows for greater server recovery in the event of a crash. This is also a critical next step towards server meshing. So I'll get into this at the end of this little section. Our current goal is to release Alpha 3.21.0 ahead of launching the preview channel with the replication layer update. Once this preview channel comes online, it will run in parallel to our live servers. Once we feel the replication layer work is reliable, we'll mitigate it over the live servers in the 3.21.x patch. You can expect to learn more about the preview channel and its critical role to bringing about new technologies online soon. Citizen Con, because it's the only thing that we've got between now and then. Yeah, so they're definitely going to be talking about the replication layer at CitCon. This is huge because this is the prerequisite for 4.0. Traveling to other systems and stuff like that. People are already freaking out because they've added in the jump points, the jump point locations to Stanton in the 3.21 PTU branch. Does this mean that we're getting Stanton with 3.21? No. I wouldn't even expect it with 3.21.x. I would not be shocked, I've been saying this for a while, if we get 4.0 PTU at the end of the year. So they actually do have the ability to travel other systems in the PTU at the end of the year. But I don't think that we'll be traveling to Pyro with 3.21.x. This is kind of the prerequisite for that technology. So they're going to drop this in, make sure it's working, and then drop in 4.0, because having a bad launch of 4.0 would be almost as devastating as having a bad launch of Squadron 42. So they're going to hopefully make sure that the server meshing is actually working and it can hand off the Stanton server to the Pyro server for people traveling through those wormholes. Fingers crossed. Vehicle tractor beams. Implementing tractor beams attached to ships, either remote operated or a turret-like attachment. This allows players to move and tow bigger objects, including other ships. Now, what would be cool, and they specifically, I guess they haven't talked about this for a while, but they said a tractor beam attachment point would be tractor beam exclusive. For a while now, we've been able to pull the non-working tractor beam off ships and use it as a weapon point, like on the 315P. Its nose gun area is actually a tractor beam, but you can pull that off and slap a gun on there, basically no cost. The question is if they're going to actually allow us to do that anymore, because it would be kind of cool if you wanted to sacrifice a gun port for a tractor beam on a ship that wouldn't normally have a tractor beam, that you'd be able to do it. I don't know, just my 2 cents. Tumbrel's tank. Building, implementing, and balancing Tumbrel's light tank, the Storm, as a game-ready vehicle. I actually do have a Storm. I think it's cool looking. It's very anime, which I normally don't go for, but it strikes me as something fun. Who knows if I'll ever actually use it, or if I'll just use it as an LTI token. Crusader C1 Spirit. Building, balancing, and implementing Crusader Industries' small multi-crew cargo ship, the C1 Spirit, into the game. Got something to show you. So I'm not sure how many people caught this in yesterday's ISC, but you look at the space he's in, and at first I was like, oh yeah, it's just a C2. And that is noticing that the ceiling is way lower. That, my friends, right there is the interior of the C1. So it's a bit bigger than I thought. Either that or they're rolling out a Crusader ship that's it would be interesting if they did it, if they ran a cargo runner that was Connie sized. And I know you're immediately going to say, what about the MSR? The MSR is technically a data runner. It could run cargo, but the cargo bay was originally just supposed to be ancillary, but then it bloated up during development, which was one of my issues with the MSR, was that they made so many sacrifices to jam in the crawl spaces that it grew exponentially in size. It basically doubled its size and fatness. So if this is the inside of the C1, that looks like a substantial amount of cargo that thing could run, which, if memory serves, is about on par with the Freelancer base. I don't even think the Freelancer Max, but that looks bigger than the Freelancer Max cargo bay. Let me know if I'm right on that, or if you think I'm way off. But that'd be interesting if that is the C1, and I fully expect it is, because I think it'll be able to carry more cargo than we originally thought. And on to the last one, the Argo SRV. Building, implementing, and balancing Argo's tugboat, the SRV, as a game-ready vehicle. And that one's looking pretty solid. It's still missing a couple downstream teams, but again, Argo, well-established style guide and sound effects and everything. Shouldn't take too long. I'm sure we'll have it by the end of the year. I don't think any of these things outside of the replication layer, that one could be touchy. I would imagine one of the reasons they're not saying yes 4.0 at the end of the year is because they've been saying the road to Pyro for the last 3.5 years, and they don't want to say it again and find out that there's something game breaking in the replication layer. So they're not going to flat out say, you're getting 4.0 at the end of the year, yay! So they're kind of holding that back. I think by SitCon they'll have a better idea if it's working well enough to make that call or not. And then if it is, they'll say 4.0 is on the PTU, go have fun. Fingers crossed for that. But I think that they're probably not trying to put themselves on the 8 ball with that. That they want to make sure it's working before they say, yeah, road to Pyro. Just kidding. Replication layer isn't working, and have everybody rightfully lose their damn minds. Let's go on to the release view. All right, so here we go. Here's 3.21. We got the usual stuff in here. So, I mean, a lot of this was under the 3.20 build. New Crusader platforms are right there. Again, it's cool they're adding more locations on Crusader, but that is a gas giant. I would expect Crusader and other corporations to have townships and cities of their own on Crusader. Granted, that could just be something that comes further down the line. Like if you look at Hurston now versus Hurston that we got originally, grew substantially. So, and I'm not just talking about Lorville, I'm talking about everything in the planet. Like locations, complexity, all of that went up, and on the moons too. So I would assume Crusader's going to get the same treatment when they have devs that have time. So maybe that'll be part of Montreal's job. New mission retrieve consignment. Okay. Vehicle tractor beams is tentative. I think it's pretty solid. They wouldn't have put it on here if they didn't think they could get it in, even though it's tentative. By the end of the year, the tractor beam itself shouldn't be too hard to implement. I think it is more the impacted tech around it. Things like they've got the industrial size tractor beam, so you've got the little handhold in your multi-tool. They've also got the one that's rifle size, that's industrial, that I think is actually made for moving the bigger boxes. And then you have the ones like on the SRV that are huge and made for moving big ships. Like, I mean, you can see it towing a Cuddy here. I think they said the maximum ship that a single SRV would be able to tow would be a Connie. That was originally, they're going to be balancing that out. So you might need 2 SRVs to haul anything bigger than that. I would assume we're going to hear a lot more about tractor beams at SitCon. That would be a good one to do. New missions, steal evidence. Again, this is just security post Korea, which kind of lowers my excitement for it. But for those of you who are PvPers, one more reason to go to Korea and fight it out with someone. Crusader 1 Spirit, again, that's the one with the size 5 bombs. Very cool looking ship. Yeah, I do have one. I am a ship whore. Who knows if I'll keep it, again, for the same reason that I've got an A2 that's going to become a Nautilus. Spacefaring fleet traveling system to system doesn't really need a bomber. Trade fleet doesn't really need a bomber. Mine layer, different story. Crusader C1 Spirit is tentative. Again, you saw a picture of it in the video. It looks pretty far along. I think that one's pretty good. The thing that's going to be holding it back is the tractor beam. Right here at the butt of it, it's got a tractor beam. So, in my opinion, the only reason the C1 Spirit isn't like full-on committed is because it's weighing on that tractor beam tech. Tumble Stank. Again, we've been watching sneak peeks on the Stank for the last 6 or 7 months. It looks like it's pretty much there. They're saying they're having problems with the tracks going. The devs are clever. They'll figure that out. Argo SRV, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Replication layer update, that is the big fucking deal. Yeah, that right there is what I'd say 90% of the community has been waiting for, whether they realize it or not. This is, if you believe everything CIG has ever said, this is the logjam for the game. The reason the AI doesn't work, the reason the NPCs don't work, the reason that they can't go with the quantum, the underlying economy, is because the servers don't have the capacity for it yet. All of the game loops, every single game loop adds more pressure on those servers. When you have this replication layer, when you actually have the server meshing, and you can say, okay, there's 100 people in Area 18, and there's one guy out here in Grim Hex. We're going to put this one guy in this server, and these 100 people, or maybe 50 people in this server and 50 people in this server, since they're kind of in two different areas of Area 18. That is what server meshing is going to do. Then now all of a sudden, for these people down here, they're not having to stream in all of Grim Hex just because one person is there, or all of Orison, or all of, you get the idea. Just because one person is there, it can break it off and be like, you're in this little tiny server all to yourself, go have fun. And you guys are just in this one little area, so we don't have to stream in everything else. You just get this one isolated environment. So kick up performance and everything else. That is the Jesus tech we have been waiting on. So cross your fingers they actually nail it this time. And on that note, fully, I will say hopefully it does not break the game as much as Persistent A streaming did. They cleaned that up where it's working now. But for like a year almost, Persistent A streaming pretty much made the game a tech demo over a game. And 3.20, one of the things that I like to say is that people will come into my comments sometimes and be like, Star Citizen's just a tech demo and you're a white knight. And I'm like, I'm definitely not a white knight. I will heap a fair amount of criticism on this project, but I do want to see it succeed. So call me a constructive criticizer. There are things about this project I absolutely love and I keep coming back to it, but there are things that frustrate me. And one of the things that's kind of frustrating, and it is a game in development, is that it will go from being a playable state in a playable game to a tech demo. When the game's in a playable state, it's a game. Like when you can jump in and play for 6 or 7 hours and not have any game-breaking bugs, or even like, if you have a game-breaking bug, it's not one that sets you back 2 weeks. You could just be like, oh, damn it, I got killed in a bunker. I lost all my stuff. Well, yeah, you got killed in a bunker. That's not a bug. That's a feature. But there are other times like 3.20 where you can't undock from the station and you just spend all your money on cargo, so you're stuck there. And I mean, I could easily make money doing bunker missions, stuff like that, but I don't wanna. I want to spend a week building up funds again and then doing it again, especially when we're clearly going to get some sort of a wipe with 3.21, which is only like a week away from the sounds of it. I'm guessing they'll probably drop it with CitizenCon or right after CitizenCon. Hopefully they learned their lesson on that. But anyway, the game does vacillate between a playable game and a tech demo. And you never know which one you're going to get each patch. And sometimes during the patch, they'll fix something critical and it'll run like a dream. And you'll be like, oh man, that's right. This is why I love this game. And then something will break and it'll be like, oh wow, that's why I'm going to go play Cyberpunk for a couple weeks. But anyway, let's jump into the meat of this. Let's pop on over to the progress tracker. There's a couple cool things in here. No big changes on the progress tracker this time. No big jumps in time. Everything's pretty much on schedule, so I'm going to fly through most of this. When I get to the unannounced parts, I'll kind of point out a few things I think are interesting. There's some unannounced things that have just been sitting there for years, and I think they're either waiting for Squadron 42 to release, or they're waiting for Pyro and the server tech to come along, because they were finished around the time that the Road to Pyro talk started, and then they just sort of sat back there for a long time. But anyway, we'll get to that. Actor status tier 2. This is what I think is going to be med gameplay, the next level of med gameplay. A lot of the underlying tech, though, is hygiene, NPC status tracking. There was another one that I thought was NPC related, but they say such as, so there's a lot of moving parts in this one. It's only 29 weeks, which seems low, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one draws out. But this one is another one that's probably waiting on underlying tech, and that underlying tech is quantum, how all of the NPCs in the economy and everything interacts. I would assume is one of the things it's waiting for. But the dark horse of what this is also the next level of medical gameplay. So it is DNA integrity, medical insurance, cybernetic limbs, and cloning. And the Apollo is back on the roadmap, which I would assume is probably going to wrap around, if they end up working on it straight through, especially since they're working on RSI right now. With the Polaris, they're going to have a built-up RSI pack. Making something smaller like the Apollo makes some sense, because then you get some assets for the Polaris. And as you build out the Polaris, you'll get some assets for the Apollo. So a lot of simpatico there. And that's also why they're going to be doing the Perseus and the Galaxy as kind of a cluster of 4 RSI ships all at once. But anyway, I don't think it's an accident that you've got all these medical issues coming on here, and you've got the Apollo back on the roadmap. I think that medical gameplay, they'll start rolling in tier 2 and tier 1 injuries, which for whatever reason they switched the way the tiers worked for medical, whereas tier 3 is serious but not completely debilitating. Tier 2 I think is debilitating, and tier 1 you're basically on life support. That is kind of where the cybernetic limbs and cloning, the medical facility that you are in will probably have a very high impact on how many times you can be cloned before that clone degrades. Like, I say this every time, but if you're constantly respawning at Grim Hex after you die, you might only be able to do that 5 times because the facilities suck. Whereas if you're at Orison or Area 18, you might have 20 to 30 times. So random numbers, but you can get an idea that there's going to be a huge degree of scale. If you're in Pyro, they might be able to clone you once, if they even have cloning facilities. They might not be able to grow you a new arm. You might get a cheapo cybernetic limb, which is just a hook. So something to look forward to. Additional derelict settlements. And this one does look like it's wrapping pretty soon. Again, I think it's going to stretch out a bit. No reason to drop that before the underlying tech, the background tech is there. So this might be one of those things that actually does wrap here, and then we don't get it until Quanta is up and running and server meshing and the Apollo and all of that. So, I mean, it could be like any of these other ones where they've been done for a while, but we don't have them. Additional derelict settlements. So this one, again, it's a next year thing. I say that, but it is, they're going to be rolling out derelict settlements probably every patch. They're going to sprinkle a few on certain moons or certain planets just as they go. So even though work on derelict settlements is clearly going to go into next year, it doesn't mean we aren't going to be getting any derelict settlements until this one is done. It's kind of the opposite of Actor Status Tier 2, whereas that one could wrap and we might not get it. This one won't be wrapping for a very, very, very long time, like think 5 to 6 years. But we're going to be getting derelict settlements like every patch in between. A post on Tokyo, which of course we've never seen a sneak peek on this one. It's pretty much been the only sneak, that and the stank are the only things that we've gotten for sneak peeks this year. It's I feel like I've had babies with this ship by now. I know it so well, but anyway, looks like it's going to be a next year asset, which is a little surprising. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they actually dropped this on us at IAE, which would be about here, the International Aerospace Expo. Like that this is not actually what's going on, because it looks like the ship is pretty far along from all the sneak peeks they've given us. But anyway, there are no downstream teams here. Always an important thing to check, which is one of the reasons why I always break these out, because it does give you that additional context. There's no audio, there's no GFX, there's no VFX. From some of the pictures, it looks like there has been some implemented, so how accurate this is, I don't know. Which, side note on that, and this is going to be one of my last tangents, so those of you who have followed me, my posts on Reddit, you know that I'm the guy that does this with the Sprintwatch roadmap tracker. This is the original version. I just do it in Excel. One of the ways that I get the context for all of these things that are going on is because I individually break these things out, kind of read about them, see what teams are involved, and then that kind of formulates what I'm talking about now. I'm dubious how useful that graph is as a standalone item. Some people love it, but I just feel it's confusing for newer people to the game, especially, or people that aren't as deep in the weeds in the project as we are, because they don't understand that, yeah, the Argo SRV is 100% complete. So why can't I fly it? Well, because it doesn't have GFX and all that. We know why it's not in, but for other people, it's all like, you've got all these 100% complete things. Why are they gray? And it's kind of like, well, because they haven't said they're in the game yet, so I'm not going to make that call. Anyway, and post this Nokia. There's a chance we get it at IAE. I think this might just be being safe, but next year for Alien Week is just as likely, so who knows. AR map marker system rework. We haven't seen a big jump on this, which is a good sign, because one of the things I'm hopeful for with 3.20 or 3.21 is that we get all the UI improvements. So the improved map marker, the improved mobiGlass, the improved MFDs. There's one more that I'm forgetting, but we'll get there eventually. But anyway, kind of my hope that we get those, and it hasn't jumped out yet. Artificial gravity, this is one of the prereqs, or one of the things that'll fall under the engineering game loop. So again, this is one where artificial gravity might be ready to rock by SitCon, but we're probably not getting it until the engineering game loop and resource management come in, which are more likely to be added, I would say, after Pyro. So I would look for them in like 4.1. I would expect to be the engineering patch or whatever they do, 4.01 or whatever. Just that would be my expectation. You probably wouldn't want to drop like the engineering game loop, bounty hunting, and Pyro all in one patch, because each one of those can break things and you would have a very, very, very broken game. Better to just release Pyro and see how it goes, and then let people get used to that and be like, and here's resource management. I would assume they'll do bounty hunting first and then resource management and engineering game loop. But multi-crew gameplay, again, another big milestone for this project once they reach it, and artificial gravity will be a big part of that. So those of you who want to be Scotty out there, that's one of the tickets that you're looking for. Be a new merchant, man. Oh, not seeing it this year or next year. Maybe year after. Maybe if Montreal throws us a bone. Maybe year after, 2025. I hope. Bounty hunting V2 is what I was talking about. Again, end of the year thing, so it's going to be a next year thing. Again, like I was saying, I would fully expect them to roll out bounty hunting after they roll out Pyro. It would make sense to roll it out as a game loop with Pyro. I think the bounty hunting game loop is a bit easier than the engineering game loop. Like, bounty hunting doesn't impact every single ship in the game. So it's complicated, but it's not as complicated as engineering. So I would think if you were going to roll out something with 4.0, bounty hunting would make the most sense, because you're introducing a lawless system of Pyro next to a lawful civilized system of Stanton. So it makes sense that you have bounty hunters going into Pyro to pursue bounties and being under much greater threat. Like, it's getting a bounty in in Pyro will be hard mode because you are not going to be appreciated there. Building interiors. So this is one that I was hoping we were going to get this year. I think it's going to be a next year asset. Probably going to drop it with a new underground, I would think, or something like that. It's not related. The building interiors are the actual buildings, like the ones you see in Loreville. New underground is the sort of new and improved bunkers. They're much larger, basically underground complexes. I guess there's no reason why you couldn't implement building interiors, but it's two different assets. So this one again will expand the playable area and locations considerably. So this one's pretty cool. Not getting until next year. Squadron 42, always like to talk about Squadron 42 lately because it does look like it's kind of wrapping. I was talking about, I think in my last one, that I thought something that would be cool for CIG to do at CitizenCon would be to release Chapter 1 as a playable demo, a free playable demo, and just let people play Chapter 1. Because it looks like it's done. You would start generating that hype. People would start getting around, being like, oh my God, this game is amazing. It's so pretty, blah, 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 blah. It would, especially if it works well, and it's been well tested and it's flawless, people are going to be like, okay, you know, we've been bashing this game for years. This actually looks kind of cool. Like the voice acting is pretty solid. They have some guy named Gary Oldman who might go places in the acting world. Anyway, chapter 2, all these chapters, say this every time, but they're definitely going to keep on polishing and polishing and polishing until they release the game. I am pretty much, I wouldn't say 100% certain. I'm about 93.72% sure that they're going to be making announcements at Con that Squad 42 will be dropping at the end of next year. In order for them to do that, they have to be pretty certain that Squad 42 is done right now, and they're just going to polish it up until they get there. Character work and character creator. I was really hoping, these are only Squadron 42 assets, but I was really hoping we would get a new character creator in the PU to kind of test this out before Squadron 42 goes. And with all the CIG devs who watch this channel, which is 0, it would be amazing to let us, the community, test the character creator, the new character creator, the real character creator, before it went to Squadron 42, just because we will give you an honest assessment of this thing sucks, or it doesn't make sense, or wow, this is like the best character creator I've ever seen. I hope they have more body type options. I kind of talked about that in my Cyberpunk playthrough, how even just 2 or 3 different body types and different mild changes in heights can add so much diversity and realism to the universe you're trying to build that it's worthwhile to do that. Even if you don't give the character, the player, the option to be a gigantic fat guy or a really tiny skinny guy, if those NPCs exist, it still adds life to the verse. Right now, we have everybody looks like an Olympic sprinter, like on both sides, or like a marathon runner. We're all just jacked and thin, and they probably have good drugs 1,000 years in the future. I'm just gonna put it that way. But they also have good cheeseburgers, and we've seen them. Crusader Spirit, so they did a weird thing here. They chopped it off back here. They're clearly still working on the Spirit, so I'm guessing this is just an miscommunication between the Jira and the card. They're still working on the Spirit. We know they're still working on the E1, which is the passenger ship variant, or at least we assume they are. They probably put it on ice for now because they got to have the passenger game loop up and running, which we saw it on the roadmap I want to say almost a year back now, and it was on there for a hot minute and then went away. we need that before we get the E1, but the A1 and the C1, yeah, we're looking good for those. We know they're still working on them, so the C1's out here. I'm guessing the A1 is about here. Cutting tier 2, this allows that cutting tool that comes default on your multi-tool that almost no one uses except to break into ships, which I don't even know if you can do that with them anymore. That used to be their only use. It is kind of cool. I think you can actually hurt people with them. Oh, and you can blow up boxes in if you ever run the bunker mission where you have to destroy drugs and you're going through all of your ammo, you can just use the multi-tool, move the explodey boxes onto the drug boxes, and then you hit it with the cutter and you can blow it up. Save yourself tons of ammo. The more you know. But this will actually allow you to free-form cut on specific surfaces. That's awesome. And you'll be able to cut holes through links and stuff like that, kind of like they showed in the Squadron 42 vertical slice a while ago. So you'll be able to open up traversal options, things like that. Unlock doors, presumably. Yeah, should be cool. Or like passages. I guess unlocking the door will require hacking, which is another thing. Okay, we got our disarray ammunition, distortion propagation. This is something I could see them kind of dropping into the game on the sly during 3.21. Will they? I don't know. It kind of depends on how much work they got to do. 20 weeks for a whole new ammunition type seems kind of abrupt. And some of these seem like they would go along with the bounty hunting game loop. So it could be like disarray. They also have Inferno and something else that's along those lines. I'll find them as we go down if I remember to look for them. But disarray ammunition would seem to be like a bounty hunting thing. So again, just because they finish it, it might be waiting for bounty hunting to come in before they actually give it to us. Same thing with distortion propagation. Although that is an entire weapon type, that is reworking how distortion works in the game. Always forget to mention this. Argo SRV. So it has VFX. It doesn't have audio. So it's waiting on audio. It's Argo. Well-defined style guide and audio cues. Shouldn't be a problem. Fully expect us to get the Argo SRV at the end of the year. Should not be a problem. We'll get it with IAE. This one's kind of a dark horse. Fire Hazard. I would not expect Fire Hazard to come in before resource management and engineering. I have a feeling that fires and things overheating and things exploding and raging through your ship, that's going to very much be related to the engineering game loop. I would be shocked if they dumped fires on us before we had that ability, but it doesn't seem like it's too far off. The text there. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a VFX or particles talk on what fire's looking like now, because when they showed it off last time, man, did that look cool. That is some of the best fire I've ever seen in a game. Freight elevators, looks like it's going to be a next year asset. Again, that's the next level of permanence. It's how you'll interact with your inventory. It's how you'll interact with your cargo when you're going in and out of stations. When you have a ship that can actually land inside a hangar, persistent hangars, the freight elevator will be how you interact with everything on that station or on your ship with that station next year. Incendiary ammunition. So that was the other ammunition, or one of the other ammunition types. I think there's 4 of them, 3 or 4. Chaff, I know, is, or not chaff, but like the burst. Who knows? COVID brain. But anyway, incendiary ammunition. I'm actually doing pretty well considering. But anyway, incendiary ammunition. Yeah, looks like it's wrapping around the same time. I could see them sneaking this one in because no reason not to light things on fire. Then again, because of things like fire hazard, do you really want people to light things on fire and have the fire not do anything, or have fire spread through the ship and you can't do anything with that? So you can't stop it because who knows? So yeah, I would expect incendiary ammunition and the way players break the game to come with engineering, even though it's wrapping here. Jump points. So this is exciting. In theory, it's wrapped. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more work to go. Probably out to here. But again, folks, I would not be shocked if at the end of SitCon or at the end of IAE, they say 4.0 is on the PTU. Go travel to Pyro and have fun. Try to break it. Let us try to fix it. Jump points. There you go. And again, this is one of those that even though it'll wrap, once they drop it to us, they're clearly going to see things that, ew, God, that doesn't look so good there, or that eats up a lot of resources, so let's try to tweak that. Granted, they've been working on this thing for like 3 or 4 years total of dev time, so yeah, it's a whole thing, and we'll get to see the benefits of all that work hopefully pretty soon, within the next month or 2 or 4. Life support, again, engineering. In theory, we could get it for SitCon, but we're not. It's going to come with resource management and the engineering game loop. They could sneak it to us in 3.21, but I don't think they'd do that. That is a big complex thing. I think it's all hands on deck right now to get the replication layer working, to get Pyro out the door, and then they'll shift gears and start, because that is kind of the last pillar of this game that they need, is server meshing actually working. Then they'll start switching gears and going in and filling out all the game loops that we've been hearing about for a decade. So life support, wrapping, but don't expect it until we get the engineering game loop. Map and rare system rework. There's another UI thing. I would hope they sneak it to us this year. So 3.20, 3.21. We'll be getting master modes pretty soon, that's for sure. Be kind of cool to get it all at once. Hand in hand with it is the Mobiglass rework. Again, I don't think it's accidental that all of these wrap around the same time. I think the plan was always to kind of release all the big UI elements at once to us, just so that it's not like, and this is changing, and we're like, oh, okay, and how do I do this, and what's all going on with this, and oh, okay, now I kind of got to, and now this is changing. People don't like change. But anyway, I think people will like this change because the old UI elements are very dated. Anyway, coming on down, new interdiction scenarios. Again, it's wrapped, but it hasn't actually wrapped. They're going to keep doing new interdiction scenarios on and on and on and on. They're always going to be coming up with new ones. So you'll be interdicted by a minefield. You'll be interdicted by Vandul. You'll be interdicted by Xi'an. You'll be interdicted by Banu, and on and on and on and on. They are never going to stop doing interdiction snares. New missions cargo hauling. This is the one that we're kind of waiting for on the C2. Of course, the C2 has to be able to undock from the station. This one also makes use of the freight elevators and moving large cargo. Effectively, what this is you are not putting down the money to buy a commodity and then transporting it and selling it. That's a trader. This is a cargo hauler. So you are basically saying, I have a vehicle that can move X amount of cargo. And somebody says, I would like to rent that space to have you move this box from point A to point B. What's inside the box does not matter. You're just moving it from point A to point B. Or maybe sometimes it will. Like, you'll have to have a reputation of a certain level, a certain consistency or timeliness or trustworthiness, or a certain untrustworthiness. You got to be a criminal to move cargo that will make you more of a target. Like, this is a crate full of gold that's worth as much as Stanton. Could you move it from A to B? I'll pay you $50. It's gonna be like, I'm gonna pass. So yeah. Data heist. Yeah, this is the. No, this isn't stealing evidence. Data heist is a different one. This is the one that I think is infiltrating locations. This is the one that I was kind of hoping for, that was shown off at SitCon with the Carrick, which was 2019, right? God, was it really 2019? You know you've been in a project for a long time when. But yeah, that sort of hitman infiltration stuff, which I really do enjoy. Yeah, if you're watching my Cyberpunk playthrough, you know that that's the kind of thing that totally my bag. Restoration contracts. So this is the opposite of salvaging. You're actually repairing, which this is kind of cool. If they're going to start implementing repair into the game, might mean that we're going to be getting a repair ship that isn't the Crucible, because the Crucible's the capital sort of in-game level repair ship. Could be getting something like the Vulcan pretty soon. Wouldn't shock me. And by pretty soon, I mean within the next year or two, not the next month or two. Just want to make that clear. Steal, recover cargo. Yeah, well, what's interesting is when they were talking about it over here, they made it sound like it's strictly unlawful, but this one makes it sound like there's also a lawful version where either a ship was destroyed or rendered derelict on the way to a location and you're just completing the delivery. So those missions kind of exist now where it's like, hey, my delivery went missing, it's on this wreck, go find it. Could be similar to that. This could also be somebody stole it and you need to go get it off their ship and bring it to where it was supposed to go, which would be the lawful version. The other one would be you're the one stealing it off the ship and running it over to wherever they're going to like chop shop it or whatever. New player experience. This is release is 319. You can sort of see that they've clearly going to keep working on the new player experience. I have my own views on what I think would be a more effective new player experience. I think that they should do it in the sim pods. Like if you opt into the tutorial, you start in a hangar and they say, okay, we're just going to give you a basic test to make sure that you're flight ready. Walk down or take the elevator down and go into the sim pod, and you can walk down there and it'll basically be sort of like Arena Commander. It'll be its own thing, where you won't be interacting with other players yet. You'll kind of have enough time to get your brain together and kind of figure out the controls and be like, oh, F does everything, that sort of thing. Then you'll get into your simulator and you'll kind of go through the flight training thing, which in a flight simulator, you can have the things like fly through the rings, take off. And if you blow up, you're not spawning back in a hospital gown, having lost all the cool gear you just got. Just a thought. I think that makes a lot more sense. I'm not sure why they're doing it in the physical verse. It's been a long time since I was a new player of this game, but I remember the learning curve for this game is steep and mildly unpleasant. So, yeah, making that as pleasant as possible is a much better way to build your player base before chasing them away. Origin G12, this is the Origin rover. I actually really like this one. I'm excited for this one. There are people that just absolutely hate the Origin aesthetic. I'm not one of them. I'm more of a Banu guy, but this is kind of my rover of choice. It's kind of, think of it as a Tumble Cyclone with an enclosed cockpit. Yeah, the best way to think of it. And it's sleeker. It looks cool. I like the G12, but they're going to start working on it pretty soon. It's obviously not going to finish here. This is just as long as they have planned. I don't know. I could see them rolling out the G12 for Fleet Week of next year. So like March or so of next year. Origin X1. I would hope they're going to give us the X1 by IAE, so November. I would expect the X1 to be in there. We might get it for 3.21 for SitCon, but I'd kind of be surprised. Little motorcycle, again, Origin motorcycle. Looks wise, again, one of my favorite motorcycles or space cycles, hover bikes. Yeah, hover bike. visually. I like the utility of the Dragonfly more because you can actually carry another person with you, which is huge. But looks wise, I like the X1. Homestead, Independent and Outlaw. I'm not sure why I broke this out. This is clearly a Pyro asset. We're probably not getting it until next year. And the fact that they've got it here, they could sneak out a few little homesteads for us on Backwater of Hurston would make a lot of sense. So this is the kind of thing that I've been waiting for. Like, this is one of those things, when I say that Star Citizen kind of lacks some flavor, this is generally what I'm talking about. And they know it too, because they just dropped a new patch, by the way, if you heard that noise. A small home for AI to live in shelter. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules. They provide the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. That's cool. Especially if those NPCs can interact with you. Because I think the life of a big trader, like someone like me that's going to be tooling around at Banu Merchantman, we're not going to have a hard time in this game. The hardest thing that we're going to have is convincing pirates not to blow us up and steal our stuff. Smaller traders, like people that want to have their entire game experience be, say, an Avenger Titan, they need their niche. And places like this could be that niche. Like, you probably won't be dominating going to Tressler or going from like Ruin Station to Tressler. That won't be your route. Your route will probably be going from like Lorville to this little tiny community and just bringing them food. And in return, they're going to give you like space cow eggs. Yeah, they got eggs. It's kind of gross, but kind of cool. Kind of sexy. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. Persistent hangers. Blame COVID. Persistent hangers. Next level of persistence. Again, freight elevators are probably not getting persistent hangers. Don't get freight elevators. I could see this dropping for Sitcon or IE. It sort of seems like they've nailed down persistent A streaming, and that's what a lot of this relies on. I think it's more of a question of the devs that are working on server meshing and the replication layer are probably the same ones that need to do the underlying tech for this. So have they wrapped it, or do they still have more work to do after they do streaming? So who knows? Napu is working on it as opposed to Uspoo. Just saying. Plasma ammunition, another ammunition type, wraps around the same time. Is there more work to do? Visor HUD and helmet. There's another UI element that I hope is coming this year. Once again, it would be real nice to just get the new Mobiglass, the new map, the new MFDs, the new visor HUD. Just get all of that one patch and just be like, Blazappo! And here we go. Blippity bloppity bloop. Pyro space stations, obviously a Pyro asset. Pyro system plant space station, Pyro spacescaping. We're not getting until we get Pyro. So earliest I would assume we're going to see this is the end of the year in the PTU, if not next year. And if it's next year, it's going to be around March. Quantum simulation. Again, this one's wrapped a few times. I think they're kind of just polishing it out. This is Tony Z's baby. Not to be confused with quantum travel. This is the NPCs in the underlying economy, how they interact or remember and creates virtual NPCs versus, I forget what the other version was, is virtual and another type of NPC, and one is more complex. One's just kind of a quick stat of they fly this, they have these skills, they're roughly this good at shooting, they're a good guy, they're a bad guy. And then if you actually encounter them, it kind of blows them up to, this is John Smith of this group who does this, kind of a thing, and maintains that until you hunt them down or interact with them again, I guess. Quantum simulation. Definitely waiting on server meshing. Will they drop it at the same time as server meshing? maybe we have elements of quantum in theory that are working right now. In theory, quantum is what is driving fuel prices in the verse right now, which is why you don't always pay the same when you fill up your ship, is because quantum is actually simulating that asset. Yeah, that is as much crap as Tony Z gets. That is killer tech right there. An actual simulated economy is not a simple thing to do, and CIG will never do something simply if there's a much more complex way to do it. Is that good or bad? No, when we got it in our hands, won't we? I think once it's in our hands and it's working, it'll be amazing. But we'll see. I don't think we're getting it until we get server meshing though. Refiner ships. This one's kind of a cool one. Interesting that's back here. This is more the underlying tech behind how refinery ships will work. Technically, we have one refinery ship in the game right now. That is the Starfarer. We're going to have the Galaxy. I think the Vulcan. No, I don't think the Vulcan can. The Expanse is out there. Expanse would make sense. Starfarer needs a whole internal rework, so I wouldn't use the Starfarer just yet. It can refuel things, and that's kind of its niche. Just let it do that for now, and then when you actually have the dev time to tackle the interior, then you can add in the refinery elements. I would bring up the Expanse, but this is not the Expanse. This is just how the actual gameplay will work. I think. And that means once they wrap this, which is near the end of the year, probably the next step will be working on the refinery game loop. I don't know why I had reputation hostility. It's kind of a cool feature. Basically, I'll talk about it a little bit. It basically means that if you run a bunch of missions with Crusader security, the Ninetales are going to really hate you. Like they will straight up attack you on sight, whereas otherwise they'll probably just, I don't know, attack you on sight. They aren't real complex right now, but maybe they will be when Quantum comes in. And maybe they'll have a little bit more nuance. But the opposite will be true. If you're running a bunch of missions for Rudo or, I forgot the drug runner's name. The, Clive? No, not Cliven. Anyway, the other mission giver that's down in the basement of Grimhex that used to be at Delamar. If you're running missions for him, you're basically running missions for the Ninetales. So you have a good reputation with the Ninetales. You'll have a bad reputation with Crusader security, and they might start attacking you. So that's the reputation hostilities. Would be kind of cool because there'll actually be real consequences for teaming with this group over this group. Resource management. So this is what I was talking about. You can see end of the year. Again, this would be one that I would assume even once we get it, they'll keep working on it and polishing it. This is an entire game loop that is pretty complicated, and they're still rolling out cargo elements. So yeah, engineering is going to be a huge game loop, and resource management touches everything. So yeah, every single ship in the game will have to be tweaked to take resource management into account. So when they used to do, I don't know how many of you were here when they did sign distance straws on the shields, but they had to apply that to every single ship, and there are fewer ships in the game. Took a while. Same thing with this. Resource management, gonna take a while. RSI Apollo, here it is, gang. So this, I'm assuming, is just the white box exploration that we saw on ISC. Is it going to take them 11 weeks to do it? No. That is going to take them like maybe IAE of next year. Wouldn't be beyond the pale for the RSI Apollo. And again, there's going to be a lot of simpatico because they're going to be rolling out. They're going to be working, not rolling out. Polaris is going to take a couple of years, gang. Although we should see an update on the Polaris at SitCon. Hopefully the curse doesn't apply. There's usually a curse that if they show something like the progress of at SitCon, it means it's going to be delayed 2 years. Hopefully we don't see that with the Polaris, where they'd just be like, put a pin in it. I still think making the Perseus probably would have been the easier road and then make the Polaris. But what the hell do I know? Salvage, vehicle munching. This is the next level of salvaging, and I could have sworn if I had put money down on it, I would have lost money, that we would have gotten vehicle munching this year. When they showed us the sort of prototyping for this, I was guessing, just based on how much time the devs have been working on it, that they were well past the prototype stage and they had a really good idea of what it would look like, what it would act like, and all of that. Apparently not. So vehicle munching might be a little ways off, which makes sense because there's a lot of things involved. You got to be able to cut up the ship and stuff. The real question is, so if you ever played Hard Space Shipbreaker, it was basically just the salvaging game loop in space. But I would expect the order of operations for salvage to be very similar in Star Citizen. So in mining, you find a rock, you break a bigger rock into smaller rock, you hoover up the more expensive pieces, then you refine it, and that's kind of the loop right there. If it's volatile, then you got a certain time limit involved. With salvaging, it's more order of operations. So you go, you find a derelict spaceship, you want to go inside, turn everything off, vent the atmosphere, probably maybe even siphon off the atmosphere, siphon off the gas, the fuel, anything that you can get that might cause the ship to explode. You'll either vent it into space or you'll collect it to sell later. Then you will go in and pull all the components you can. You'll pull all the items off of it that could be possibly valuable. Then you'll strip off the skin, and then you'll start cutting the ship up so that it can be fed into your processor and munched. So vehicle munching is probably, or should be, the last thing that you do to a ship. So I could kind of see they're working on it now, but it's probably not a bigger priority than like the room system. And I would assume resource management would be tied into that, of venting off the gases and the fuel for the ship. And so it doesn't explode. That'll probably come before vehicle munching, I would think. Security Network V1, this is all those hacking things. It looks like it's wrapping pretty soon, which is why I put it on here. I would think this is probably going to go a little bit further. This is clearance levels for elevators and doors. I would also assume that it applies to us and our ships, that we'll be able to lock down our ships, and then other people will be able to hack their way past that security in order to access our ships. That's where they're eventually going to go with it. But also, this will be key for the infiltration missions, which again probably aren't coming until the new underground, which isn't coming until next year, which isn't coming until probably after Pyro drops. So 4.1 or so. So think June of next year, hopefully. They're rolling along with it and everything's working. Sliding. So traversal. There's a few traversal things out there. We just got mantling and kind of grabbing ledges and stuff like that. I thought a lot like the UI things, that they're going to just drop all of these on us at once. Apparently not. So there's sliding, ladder climbing, prone, EVA, swimming are all out there, and they all wrap around the same time. I was thinking they would just drop them all on us at once and be like, you can do a lot more in the verse now. Go out there and have fun. Like, run around, slide to your heart's content. Apparently not. Space Whale. Hopefully we start seeing some more critters in the verse when server meshing comes around. Here's swimming, which I just mentioned, so I won't go into it again. Utiliflex crossbow. So this one has been done forever. This was a stretch vehicle or a reward. I think it was something that you could purchase back in the day during the Kickstarter. It dates from the Kickstarter. They finished it, but they were also saying that there were some issues with it, and so didn't really elaborate on that. I am guessing, once again, given CIG, they want to make sure that the bolt on the crossbow has sufficient drop and all that. So now I'm going to get into the unannounced, and usually I just kind of skip the unannounced that have been done for years and years and years and years, just because we haven't gotten them for some reason, and who the hell knows what it is. We don't have any context on what they are because they're unannounced. So this one took 23 weeks, again, was finished a long, long time ago. But you can see all the different teams that were involved in this, and it's nearly all of them. So you got like facial tracking, you have landing zones, you've got audio, you got everything else. My guess is this is a pyro location. There's some sort of pyro location. It says unannounced content, so maybe a trade ship or something like that. That wouldn't be ours. It would be like a location out there. I'm guessing this is a pyro location though. Unannounced vehicle, again, vehicle concept art, 12 weeks. Why would they sit on a vehicle concept? 12 weeks is mid to large, depending on how complicated it was, maybe a bit smaller if it's an alien ship. Been done for years. Who the hell knows what it is? It's just a concept. Again, it's waiting for something, which makes me think it might be Squadron 42 related. So maybe it's a Van Duel ship, maybe it's Xi'an, or it's a PU asset, but there may be something that story-wise, they're not going to show us what this is just yet, or it's waiting for the tech to get closer. But it's weird for a vehicle concept to be on ice that long. So here we go. So this one is 43 weeks, again, unannounced content. So a lot of these are unannounced content, which that makes me think pyro, because a lot of these were finished around Q4 2021. This one, same thing. And that was when they were kind of pushing the road to pyro thing, which kind of makes me think that these are pyro assets. They're just kind of waiting for pyro to drop before we get this content. But again, you've got audio, landing zone. So we're getting some kind of locations here with this one and this one. And I think this one's vehicle related. But we're getting some sort of location weirdness that's coming that isn't the new underground, isn't building interiors. It's something they haven't told us about yet. What is it? Who knows? But it is a landing zone, so maybe a some sort of illicit location or trade location. Oh, I don't know. It's kind of cool. Face again. So again, I think that the face is what was his name? Eldon or Eldrin. For those of you that were here when Levski was in the game, you'd land at Levski and he would always go ahead, I'll launch. That guy. That I think is why the face element is on there. So I think these are literally landing zones. And they're just kind of holding them back until pyro drops. 11 weeks unannounced content. This one's vehicle related, so who the hell knows? It's sandbox team, vehicle content. I don't know. I don't know with that one. This one is 5 weeks with unannounced tech, and it's the Planet Tech team. So let me know what you think that might be, because that one's kind of interesting that they haven't really held back anything on Planet Tech that we know of. So is it weather or something? I would assume that would take longer than 5 weeks to actually have. Tony Z briefly, I think it's Tony Z, mentioned that they wanted to have actual weather patterns on planets. I would think that would be slightly more complicated than 5 weeks. So this one, 12 weeks, unannounced content. It's the location concept art team. So it's just concept art, it's drawing it up. This one, I wouldn't be shocked if it was more alien related. I just don't think that any human settlement would require that much concept art anymore. So it might be alien ruins or something like that would make more sense, which actually could fill in some of the unannounced content up here. This one's weird. 26 weeks by the narrative team, and it's both Squadron 42 and the PU. So this is one of those, I mentioned that there were some of these that we're going to be waiting until Pyro, or we might be waiting until Squadron 42. This is going to be one that, as Squadron 42 unfolds, we're going to be given some information that's going to be mind-blowing for the people that have followed lore in the verse. What'll it be? I don't know, but it's apparently this. 26 weeks of narrative work. I'm guessing it's whatever aliens are out there driving the Vanduul into human space, would be my guess. 9 weeks EU landing zone team, unannounced content. That's a pretty quick turnaround time for a landing zone, but who knows? Game services team, 23 weeks. My thought on this one is this is the long-awaited org tools. So actually being able to say, these are the people in my org. I'm assigning this ship to this person. I'm assigning this ship to this person. This person has these permissions on the ship. This person has these permissions on the ship. That might be resource management to a point, but at least having something that is attributed to my account, have another player be able to use it, or be able to log in on my ship. So right now, one of the things that kind of sucks is you go into the verse, you're tooling around with your friends, and if you want to log out, you have to go land at a station, no matter what you're doing or in the middle of. Everybody has to go kind of make sure that they are verified on that station, and then log out. Now you will actually be able to live off of your ship and log out on that ship. And even if, let's say you're on my Carrack and you log out on my ship and you want to log back in and play around the game, and let's say I'm at a conference somewhere and I don't know, get COVID or something and I'm out of operation for a couple weeks, then you can log in. And if I've given you the permission to actually fly the ship, you can just take my character and go do stuff, which I have given you permissions to do. That's what I think this is. I could be way off. 2 weeks, narrative, unannounced vehicle. This is just the narrative team sort of saying, this is a vehicle that does this game loop, or it kind of looks like this. 2 weeks, who knows? Is that a long time? Is that a short time? I don't know. You give me 2 weeks to write about a vehicle, probably write something pretty long. It kind of depends on what it is and what I need to write about it. Vehicle concept art, 15 weeks, unannounced vehicle. 15 weeks for concept art is a decent amount of time, so that's probably not a small ship. Think like Connie sized. They're kind of trying to fill out the Connie range, like that size of ships, kind of the mid to mid large. Connie, Corsair, MSR, that size ship. They've mostly got those filled out for the industrial ones. What's Misk? Does Misk have a ship in that size range? Not thinking of one offhand. No, they go from the Starfarer to the Freelancer to the Starfarer, if memory serves. They don't really have anything that's competing against the Connie. So maybe it's the Misk competitor for the Connie. Unless I'm off. Remind me. My brain, a little fuzzy. Let me know. 34 weeks for an unannounced vehicle. This one is straight to flyable. This is the one that we don't know what it is. So you've got 28 weeks for an unannounced vehicle down here, I think. Yeah, this one was done back here. This is just a vehicle concept. 28 weeks is a mid to large ship. Kind of depends on which brand it is. If it's an alien ship, it's probably smaller because it takes them longer to kind of come up with the style guide. If it's something like RSI that they have a really well established style guide for, 28 weeks could mean capital. It could mean another galaxy. I would kind of lean towards a bigger ship because this year, the ships that they've released have all been pretty tiny. Like they've been the Fury. Let's actually take a look. Okay, the whole C is an exception. But you got the Fury LX, you've got the Lynx, you got the Fury, you got the Fury MX. All very small. And that was May. You didn't have any ships for 318, which was March. 317. Oh, wait, no, you did. The Drake Vulture was put that medium small, and the Scorpius Antares, which they already had the Scorpius, so they just had to yank off the turret. The Pisces, the Cutter, the Steve, the Corsair, which they have been working on for a couple years, the Centurion, which is not complicated, the Drake Mule, and the Scorpius, and the Hull A. Hull A had some complexity to it because of the folding physics grids. But yeah, you look at this from April of 2022, and we could even go back a little bit further, the Cutlass Steel, which they spelled it wrong, and the Hover Quad. You look at the ships that we've gotten over the last couple of years, and they're all medium, small, or flat out tiny. Like especially the last year, with the exception of the Hull C, which again has been under development 4 years. They had to release it eventually. Everything we've been getting is tiny. So something big out there would make sense, but this again is a concept. So yeah, who knows? 34 weeks, probably not a huge ship. If I had to guess, 34 weeks would put her around a starter. And timing wise, I wouldn't expect this to be a Sitcon ship. I would expect this to be an IAE ship, just because of Starsays and leaks, which aren't completely reliable, but I think they get more crap than they deserve. They can be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Breathless at times and declaring stuff that they don't necessarily know is real. But these two right here are very likely the Cutter variants. So Montreal is working on them. 27 weeks, 23 weeks. One of these is the exploration variant, and the touring variant, I think, is what we've got. So one of these is going to be like a little camper van, which the first ship that I got in the game was the Mustang Beta when it was still in the hangar and you couldn't go anywhere. And I would just go onto the Mustang Beta, sit on the bed, and watch the TV pop up. It was such a cool little interior, and they changed it for the original, or for the new one when they redid the Beta. But I love that old Beta concept. So the Cutter kind of scratches that itch for me. So if they come up with a camper van version of the Cutter, I will probably upgrade my Cutter to that. But these are probably the Cutter variants. Again, only one downstream team on one ship. I would still think this would be probably a pretty easy reach for Sitcon because the Cutter already has all its sounds and VFX and everything. So you're just doing minor tweaks to make it fit the new game loops that are involved with it. So yeah, I would think those are going to be easy to hit. 11 weeks for an unannounced vehicle. Again, this is one that was done a while ago. This one is straight to flyable. So what I think this one is, since they don't have the Mirai Fury LX and the up above parts, 11 weeks is crazy fast. And since all they had to do to the Fury was yank the weapons and put on thrusters, that's the Fury LX right there. 8 weeks for an unannounced ship. This is going to be Montreal. In theory, they're actually building it. There's nothing here that says concept art, but we don't quite know how Montreal works, or if they're just kind of inheriting concepts at this point and then implementing them, or if they actually have on-site concept artists and that's a necessary step. Like, is this the concept art, or do they already have the concept and now they're building the ship? We don't know yet. With the cutter variants, it sure looks like they're just flat out building the ship. But anyway, 8 weeks. Maybe the Ranger. One of the things that Montreal could do and CIG could do to kind of generate goodwill would be to go through and knock out some of the low-hanging fruit of the backlog. If you watch any of my the ship backlog or the ship pipeline videos, I kind of go into the vast majority of ships that are in the backlog are either gigantic, very complicated, or their game loop isn't in yet, or all three. So like complicated would be like the Banu Merchantman. It's alien, it's bespoke, so all the assets in it are unique. Unique to the Banu Merchantman, not unique to each individual Banu Merchantman. So yours will be like mine, but it won't be like any other ship in the game. That's what I mean. Anyway, yeah, those are the three kind of categories that you see over and over and over again in the ships that have been on the back burner for a long, long time. But there are a couple that are kind of exceptions, and I think Montreal can actually generate some goodwill by knocking those out. The Ranger, little motorcycle, that makes sense. Underground facilities. This one's a cool one. This is the one that I hope comes with not only infiltration. I really, really hope they stay away from making them just really big bunkers. Have them be legitimate trade locations and areas to get missions and stuff like that. And you can have a list of people coming in and trying to break in and do things. That would be my hope. We'll see if it happens. Vehicle tractor beams. This is one of those reasons I'm not too worried about it. I fully expect to see something on vehicle tractor beams at SitCon. They might or might not. They might just drop the Argo SRB on us and be like, go see for yourselves, dumbass. Be mean if they called us a dumbass. Weapon misfire and wear. This is one that I think is kind of cool. Something that I brought up for the last few weeks, though, is that we don't have any way to repair our guns right now. So weapon misfire and wear better come with a way to fix your gun, because if your ship starts misfiring and wearing, you just land on a pad and pay to repair it. We don't have the same kind of thing for guns. Do we bring it into a shop and give it to them and say, hey, fix this gun of mine? Or can we do it ourselves? Will we use beam season and just dump RMC on it? I don't know. Kind of cool. It'll be cool when it happens, but I'm hoping it comes with the whole gameplay of not only bad stuff is happening to your weapons, but also now you can fix them or tweak them or overclock them and do this kind of stuff to them. So maybe it's waiting on engineering game mode. I don't know. Resource management? Who knows? That's all I got, King. So any questions, throw them down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. All that sort of stuff. Yada, yada, yada. Catch you next time.